Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to a Better Life discussion. I'm your host, Marcia Trajano, and with me is my co-host, Jussara Korngold. Jussara is the Secretary General of the International Spiritist Council and former President and current Vice President of the United States Spiritist Federation. For the past 30 years, Jussara Korngold has been volunteering as a counselor in fraternal conversations in several Spiritist institutions. Thank you so much for being with me, for joining us in this live talk. And I want to say that the Psychology and Spirituality program is sponsored by AME Brasil, United States Spiritist Federation, TV Mansão do Caminho, and the International Spiritist Council. Make sure, if you haven't done so yet, hit subscribe. And if you'd like to check additional information, check our channel at www.spiritist.us. And I want to say to you, if this topic is of interest, we highly recommend, let me bring to everyone our references today. We highly recommend this book by Joanna de Angelis with a collaboration by Divaldo Pereira Franco. Finding Peace and Health, Existential Conflicts, Jesus in Our Days, and the Conscious Being. As we keep moving, I wanted to say that if you want to acquire any of these books, please go to Leal Publisher, Spiritist Books at www.lealpublisher.com. Hi, Jussara. It's so good to have you with me today to discuss this topic, which is a bit difficult to discuss, right? Self-condemnation. And just want to say that previously we discussed how important it is for us to know ourselves, to accept as we are, and implicit in what I call the call to action that is given to us by Joanna de Angelis, we understand that as part of that process, we sometimes have this overwhelming sense of feeling guilt. As a matter of fact, this topic is so important that you find reference to it in most of Joanna de Angelis' books, beyond those that I showed to you. If you were to come to my desk, you could see, my goodness, it's so many books. It looks like a bookstore with so many references that we discussed today. But obviously, due to the abundance of the material and the importance of the topic, we will just touch the surface today. More to come later. Before I move on, I want to say, Jussara, do you want to say hello to everyone?
Yes, absolutely, Marcia. Hello, everyone. Hello to you. That's wonderful to be back for another episode of our podcast-like series of programs. And I'm really looking forward for us to talk about it. It's every week has been a process of self-discovery. Every time we have to dive into those texts, the books, the references that we have from Joanna de Angelis, it has been promoting growth. And I think it's so extraordinary when we open ourselves to new knowledge, to a new approach to life, to not be afraid to look at ourselves and really think that we are a work in progress, in
Yes.
process,
Yes.
in progress as well, but we are a work in process. And and having this ability, I think it's one of the main points of this work that we are doing here together with you all. And so we are very happy that you are able to join us and tuning in each and every program that we are preparing with so much love to all of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying hello. And I just want to say the basis of what we started to discuss is found in the book Finding Peace and Health, right? And I just wanted to bring to you because in that book, Joanna, references the analysis of the evolution of the human thought, and basically goes from primitive, pre-magical, magical, rational, and intuitive. So we have this abstract notion about your thought process. And to counter that, and this is good news, by the way, Joanna keeps bringing back that idea that Jussara alluded to, that we, all of us, when we accept ourselves as we are, we start to access the tools to develop our own inner resources, and with that we are equipped to grow. We're equipped to be able to acquire new qualities, and we are able to really start to go into that process of self-discovery, the process of inner enlightenment, and the process of really um, sinking to our aspirations, right? And this is done, this is good news, as I said before, this is done without pain and without suffering, right? But we keep on thinking about Joanna's text that we're discussing here today, and she keeps saying, right, the behavior is one that should suggest that love is enlightened selflessness. And I think this is so beautiful. How can we all access this moment, this feelings, this sentiment, and in it we find ourselves, right? It's this moment of self-realization that we do. So with that, I just wanted to say we're here to actually talk about the process of self-condemnation, and those two topics go hand in hand. So I wanted to just open for us to talk some more. Jussara, what are your thoughts?
Yes, Marcia. The thing is, when we think about self condemnation and think about ourselves as immortal beings, all the process that we, from the beginning till now, and what is about to come, the first thing in terms of what you just mentioned about love, if we could really, really realize that our own existence is an act of love. When we think about a creator, regardless of the name you refer to this creator, when we think about a creator, when we think about the breath of life, it's mostly we are talking about a breath of love. We are talking about an existence that was provided to us, respecting us as individuals, respecting our process to reach those several stages of evolvement, like you mentioned, and the last one being intuition. But I'm sure when we reach there is another level that we don't even fathom yet what it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's just for where we are now. And when we think about it, when we think about all of this, what we are, like children of love, without exception, right? If we go astray or whatever, we are children of love. We come to this process that along our experiences in terms of, evolving, uh, because of our free will, because of the times, because of everything that prevailed during those times, the context of the times that we were living, of
Mhm.
course, we made wrong choices. And the more we become enlightened to that, the
Mhm.
more those choices that are and the actions and the reactions that it promoted are still engraved in our, let's call it mind, the mind of the spirit, the mind of the immortal being. And we reach a point, basically where we are now, that with a bit more of maturity, not that much, not that much psychological maturity, but this is what we want to do. This is start becoming a burden to us, and without realizing or even understanding why we are doing that, we go into a process that even begins before self condemnation itself, which is
Mhm.
the lack of self love. Because now there is something in me that awakens this ill feeling towards myself, kind of, bringing remembrances without necessarily the details,
Mhm.
that there is dust under the rug, and we have to clean that dust.
Yes.
It's there, and we do not necessarily feel capable or do not understand exactly why do I have to do that, and why things from so long ago still make me feel like this. And escape mechanism is for me to think, I'm wrong. I cannot
Mhm.
be. I don't deserve things, and we get into this spiral uh,
Mhm.
of self condemnation, self sabotaging our lives, and self pity, and it's so much. Marcia? What do you say?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So let's just back to the beginning, right? Which is number one, you and me and all of us here, want it or not, we are immortal beings. So that's the first point, which implies that upon this life and its death, a corporal death, we continue living, which means what we did before is part of our baggage, if you will. Our I love the idea that the luggage that we bring, and we start to put our memories and all of that commitment for being responsible for everything we have done, for everything that we have thought, for everything that we have said, and for everything that we decided not to do, even though we wanted to do. So there's a lot of responsibility right there. And with it, in it, there's a sense of, whoops, I made a mistake. And I think, like you said, Jussara, it starts with that realization that comes with the process of self-awareness, right? Those that have the courage to self-reflect and become self-aware is now confronted with our own mistakes. And with when we look at our own mistakes, we need to now understand, how do I fit in? Do I forgive myself? Do I, even if I cannot forgive or forgiven from somebody else, Do I still love? And I think it's all about that self love that you're talking about. And once we go through that, then what do you do with this? We're still responsible. Regardless of how we go about it, we are responsible based on the laws of action and reaction. For every force, Sir Isaac Newton said, for every force, there is one that goes against in equal force in opposite direction. So this is that law that we, regardless of how we want to act upon our commitments and our responsibilities, we have to go through. But the problem here is that little thing called guilt, that little thing called self-condemnation. What do you do with this? Right? How do you manage this sense of you haven't done what you're supposed to do? And this is quite hard, as we mentioned before. This process to which I believe you just mentioned, we are here and we may not be mature psychological, but we are, right? We're no longer children. We are this work in process. But as we are developing as human beings, we really need to understand, what do I need to do? What are the tools that I need to deal to be able to trigger this sense of self acceptance and self love, despite the fact that we all make mistakes. And I think I wanted to perhaps pause a little bit here, Josada, to talk about a point that you brought. Why are some things right? It's just not everything, but some things that trigger a stronger reaction than others, right? Maybe everything you have that the so-called the thick skin, you can handle every type of conflict, and then there is one person in your life and they just have to say and all of a sudden all your guilt sips through from within, that sense of I failed. And I think we we can talk about, Jussara, here about all that ancestral legacies, right, that we bring with us. We can talk about, from a psychological perspective, of our unconscious archives. We can talk about, my goodness, the expression of those legacies and those unconscious archives in terms of how they manifest into insecurity, fear, instability, and those escape mechanisms that you talked about. So let's talk a little bit. How do we start here? Can we talk about perhaps in the reincarnation process that we are here, life after life, the idea that we carry those ancestral legacies? Jusada, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. You brought so many good.
Yeah.
Uh, I know Joanna is the one responsible for that. I have her here. But yes, to one of the questions that you asked, we can
Mhm.
say that we have open wounds. So this is why some things
Yeah.
bother us more than others. So we can state for sure, and this is something that we have been mentioned a few times,
Mm.
that we we are going through a process of progress, and
Mhm.
uh, today I am the best version of myself. So thinking from this perspective and going back in time, analyzing history, historical facts, and
Mhm.
everything that we have here on our planet, we played a role in many of those occasions that today we look with, saying that that was barbaric, right? But along the way, we had opportunities to remove, let's say, the holes of those, the lack of knowledge, the ignorance itself that led us to act in a certain way. And we come to terms with that, but not everything, because we are just beginning this process of re-educating ourselves. So there are open wounds, uh, facts that will trigger us into saying, this is an area that you're still weak, that you still, you know, use the self-condemnation and how
Yeah.
bad I was, or and all these emotions come to surface, and it becomes very difficult for us to deal with that. I think
Mhm.
the best way for us to deal with that, like Joanna de Angelis, actually she uh, uses for title in this chapter exactly lack of self-love, but
Mhm.
to uh, to lead us to do exactly the opposite.
Mhm.
Compassion. Okay, maybe it is still hard for us even to love ourselves, because deep inside, I know how many things there are uh, to do. I have to own my actions, the responsibility of my actions. And this has been one thing that I've been doing. I'm going to share with you for quite some time now, how to come to terms with all that, with this history, with this ancestral memory. That is
Mhm.
more than a memory, right? We were active participants in all of this. Is uh, looking uh, at other people, not necessarily myself, because sometimes
Mhm.
we have to look in the mirror. It hurts more. So I will look for those people from the past that have a very bad reputation. And I started using that methodology that Jesus would say, before criticizing anyone, go and walk in their shoes for a week, in their sandals for a week. So I start thinking about the whole context where those people lived, and not just saying if it was me there, how would I have act, but just thinking they are the byproduct of their times. So to try to condemn people, attitudes, actions that they did with the view that we have today,
Mhm.
right? Considering that they lived 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, it's not fair. It's not us having compassion, having understanding. So, having said that,
Mhm.
okay, I'll have compassion in relation to others, to important figures from the past, but also in relation to myself. Which doesn't mean that I'm going to accommodate to what I am and saying, okay, at least I have self awareness already. No, I mean, I will be courageous enough to see my flaws.
Mhm.
And the invitation from Joanna de Angelis here, from my perspective, right? Because, there are so many angles for us to see, is that she's inviting us not to linger on negative emotions, that is the self-condemnation, the self-pity, or oh, poor me, everything happens to me, but I know that it happens to me because I'm a naughty person, or
Mhm.
because I for sure have done so many things in the past, which is something that sometimes we do wrong as well. We keep on blaming the past without realizing that we are still doing those things today. So
Yeah.
here she's inviting us to look at the glass half full. Okay, I'm just in the middle of my journey, but I already did that. And there is room for more things, for more improvement, and not be there, holding into those thoughts that
Mhm.
I don't deserve. Somehow I know that things do not come my way because I'm bad, I was bad, I did things, or uh, blaming yourself too much, and then
Mhm.
even others. So this is just some of the things that we could be talking now, Mercy. I don't know if
Yeah.
you wanted to.
Yes. No, this is very good, and I
Mhm.
appreciate that. One of the things that I wanted to perhaps for us to talk a little bit during our time together, Jussara, is to maybe understand that some inner conflicts may take control of our life, right? So we are a walking zombie, if you will. We are just suffering as a result of those inner conflicts. And the question here is why, Jussara? Why do we have those things that we carry with us? And we already mentioned, so why do they happen? Well, those that may be dormant, right? We are immortal beings. So I may carry a part of this baggage that I may carry is with me, but I'm not really dealing with that. It's all good. It's in the back, right? It's dormant. It's hibernating, but when they start to be awakened by whatever triggered, I think you mentioned that little wound, right? There's something that sparks the sense of inadequacy, the sense of hurt. And when we look at it, they come and they spark this fire within that maybe we were not ready to deal with it yet, and they start with this potential to take control of our lives and even our ability to deal with how we are from a psychological perspective. So the question that I have here for us, for both of us, is why? Why are those dormant conflicts inside of us take hold of who we are? And it's all about having unresolved experiences in from our past lives, right? So I think when we talked about the notion of reincarnation and life after life, Jussara, we talked about we are responsible for a lot of the things that we criticize today. We were we are actors in that theater, right? We were doing something very, very much likely that we've done that. So the question that we have is, we are the best version of who we are today, but somehow we know that we haven't always been there, right? We haven't always been the best version. It's an improbability and an impossibility. So the question then, what do we do? Our favorite psychologist, Mr. Young, talks about this mask that we create to kind of hide our sense of inadequacy. And whenever something is the trigger to losing that mask, we lose our sense of very frail sense of peace. And that's where the guilt plagues us. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that. We our mask is uncovered. We are shown, or we feel exposed, and then we awaken that enemy within ourselves. Can we talk a little bit about it? And it's all in the process of self awareness and self discovery, right, Jusada?
Sure, Marcia. What I was thinking when you were talking is, like we mentioned before, and I'm one person that really believes in the Creator, and that we just received love from God, from the Creator. I believe this is an act of God, of love as well. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
while we do not have the maturity to deal with certain things that would be
Mm-hmm.
painful to us, they are kept hidden.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we normally talk about, the different departments that we have in our brain. Even sometimes, someone, brings a book for you to read and you said, oh my god, this is too much for me, I'm just going to keep it now, for now. Maybe after I grow a little bit, I will be able to address this. I think it's the same thing when we are talking about this inheritance that we have from the actions. Because even if we say, like I mentioned before, to be compassionate and to think about the context of the time, it doesn't mean just because I have, let's say, an excuse to say that what was what we knew, that's what we thought it was right to do at the time, that it doesn't hurt. Or when
Mm-hmm.
I look at it today, let's say a slave owner,
Yeah.
okay, I may know that this is what happened, centuries ago, but it's still, if I see myself like one, it's going
Mm-hmm.
to hurt anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I may have, like I said, the excuse, so to say, that this is what we knew at the,
Mm-hmm.
but it's hard. So it's difficult for us to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like a child that you start disclosing knowledge about life itself, little by little, right, according to their maturity. So I believe that the more, and since we are mentioned about reincarnations and all that and all those process, the more
Mm-hmm.
we live, the more we experience, the more we grow, the more we will be able to, open some of, those departments, those little drawers, that, okay, now I'm strong enough to eliminate that,
Yeah.
uh, owning it, looking for ways to, that will represent the opposition of what I did before.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to be an Albert Schweitzer. Right? To some country, and I was a slave owner, but now I'm going to look for exactly the opposite, where I can do something good. And this is I think a good example in the sense that it doesn't have to be something that is painful, or that like sometimes we just think about karma as being a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
It can be something that you become so selfless and so conscious of what you have to do, that you will dedicate yourself to eliminate that thing, those actions that were there laying dormant. And in terms of the persona, sometimes, to deal with our own selves, and it's not just with the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just the world. I know I wanted to show myself, like, like the world, like to see. It's one thing, but sometimes we do that as an escape mechanism as well.
Mm-hmm.
I use that mask so much that this is what I believe I am.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, you preach so much, let's say, a virtue that not necessarily you already possess, but you're still
Mm-hmm.
believing that you have it. But if it chances, present themselves, you will see that you are going to act the opposite way of, of what you believed you already had conquered. So that's why, when you're talking about psychology and combining with spirituality, it's so much. I think it's happening now exactly because of that, right, Marcia? Because
Yeah.
now, at least, like I said, we have to have the courage to face those topics,
Yes.
and not from a negative perspective, but from a positive one. It's not that I just walked half of the road. No, I already walked half of the road, right? And if I had the energy to do that until now, I will have the energy to do whatever comes next. And so this is a positive way of looking. And everything starts with this love, with this self-love, and it stop just finding excuses that it's because I did something. It's the self-condemnation. It's
Hmm.
don't deserve, or people, or in the case of self-pity, people
Mm.
only going to love me if they see me very fragile, and we get accustomed to, to act almost like vampires. We feed on the energy of
Yes.
that the compassion around us is giving,
Yes.
and we forget that we are our own source of energy. We are
Yes.
light.
Yes. So back to what I was saying, right? The issue here is we become responsible for that self-condemnation, right? Through self-criticism, and really awaken the enemy within ourselves. It's this self-criticism can be so disempowering, and that all of our thinking and our behavior, uh, they become the target for us to crush ourselves down, and it can be truly destabilizing to our emotional peace. So it's very important when we look at this, because we need to perhaps look at what it is, very very courageously look what it is that I've done, and I must have done something, right? I feel in a way that it hurts. The guilt is expressed by self-criticism, by self-animosity, by really waging a war within ourselves, that everything I do, I go into self-sabotage, and it leads us to this sense of failure that can be quite dangerous for our own sense of self. So let's just be careful with all that we bring, because we are here, and I'm sure, Jussara, you're going to say, yes, we are here to do this. We're here to really invite all of us to embark in this journey of self discovery, self awareness. And all we're saying is, let's do that also with self compassion, through self forgiveness and self love. The lack of self love can be quite traumatic to all of us. What are the some of the things, as we come to a close, Jussara? What are the things that come to your mind in terms of our desire, or our destiny, if you will, to really reach a state of plenitude, a state of fulfillment, and all the types of obstacles that come our way as part of the package called self condemnation and guilt?
You see, Marcia, Marcia, the way I see is we are beings that we are always going to be in the direction of light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's innate in us. Um, and somehow, like we were saying about those traumas and these ancestral inheritance that we have, we we understand that in a way that refers to an aggression to righteousness that we
Yes.
promote.
Yes.
Okay, because here there is no creator or tribunal there to punish you. It's our own conscience. And the
Mm-hmm.
more I become aware, like I said before, okay, it was what they did at that time, but it's still, it is bad. I wish I would never repeat that, and I
Mm-hmm.
never ever done something like this.
Mm-hmm.
So but this is inevitable. It's a fate for us, as immortal beings to go
Mm-hmm.
towards the light. And because of that, even when we delay ourselves in those traumas that are referent to our actions, and also in relation to the actions of others towards us. Sometimes, we were so mistreated in other incarnations that now we lack confidence in presenting ourselves to the world or a certain
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
people, or sometimes, people that we see people that have aversion to any kind of religious possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I normally say, watch out, because if you have such an aversion, is because you have killed, you
Yeah.
have been, and have killed and have been killed,
Yeah.
have, in the name of the of any kind of religion, or the church in this case. So we bring all that, but
Mm-hmm.
even when we are really down, and when maybe we don't even have a chance at that moment to find a solution for ourselves, somehow a solution or mercy will reach out.
Yes.
And it can be person, it can be a book, it can be a podcast that you're listening to. It can
Mm-hmm.
be so many things that will give you that impulse
Mm-hmm.
to go in the direction that we are all going. We talked about the pursuit of happiness. It's our
Yes.
right, but more than right, is our inner desire. There's nothing more that we desire than to feel happy, than to feel peace, right? And this is the direction we're going. So let us be merciful with us, allow ourselves as well to, to meet those circumstances that are difficult for us to deal with by looking at ourselves, but let us also be inspired to go on, and to accept, love ourselves, be compassionate towards ourselves, and just keep going. And whenever necessary, ask for help.
Yes. Yes. I think wanted to just wrap it up with what you said so beautifully. So thank you. Is if we want to come to terms with how do we break the cycle, right? How do we start on from the self-criticism, self-condemnation, guilt, and break it so that we can start back into the road of happiness and peace, is just understand that it is inevitable that we will grow, And through the laws of reincarnation, yes, the circumstances by which we find ourselves are perfect for us to meet the unpostponable recovery for our own soul, meaning that we will find triggers that will lead us to some sort of conflict. But let's look at each trigger as an opportunity to look back and find the solution for that eternal happiness, to that eternal growth, that sense of this is, we are getting some breakthrough here, and we are indeed achieving our happiness. That's what I thought would be a good way for us to end our talk today, Jussara. There is so much more that we can talk. I said more to come, and perhaps we have another time to keep chiming away on the topic of guilt specifically. But with that, Jussara, I want to say thank you for your time today. Thank you so much for your thoughts and your ideas, and we'll see you again soon.